After the zombie virus broke out, my sister and I found two crystal cores. Between the metal ability and the healing ability, she took the lead in choosing the more powerful former, and I was forced to choose the healing ability. When she led the team to search for supplies, I was enjoying the air conditioning in the medical station of the base. When she was fighting in the sea of corpses and blood, I was sleeping in the arms of the base leader. Her clothes were stained with blood and brains, while I was always dressed in a white robe, spotless. In the end, I was pushed off the city wall by her and was devoured by the zombies. When I opened my eyes again, my sister and I were reborn on the day when we chose our abilities. She took the lead in choosing the healing ability. It's my turn to enjoy the good life this time. I smiled and said nothing. 01. Wait a minute, I take it back. I want the healing ability. Just as I was about to get the pure white crystal core representing the healing ability, my sister suddenly changed her mind. I knew that she was reborn too, but it seemed that she didn't know that I was reborn as well. It was the second day after the zombie outbreak, and we found the body of a researcher in the corridor of the apartment. The body was already cold, and there was a damaged password box next to it. We tiptoed and carried the box back to the shared house, and opened it effortlessly. Inside were two crystal cores, one gold and one white. There were small words next to them that read metal and healing. In the previous life, my sister firmly believed that the metal ability was definitely powerful, and having it was equivalent to getting the script of the leading lady in the apocalypse, so she left the healing ability, which had no offensive power, to me, and she called it protection for me. But when I became the so-called little princess of the base, she was unwilling to fight the zombies all day long. The milk that she could only afford after going on several missions, I could easily get just by moving my fingers. Even Arthur, the leader of the base, became my admirer. Such a huge disparity in treatment finally shattered her hypocritical facade. Rory, why do you deserve all this? I've risked my life for the base countless times. Clearly, I've made a greater contribution to the base. Why do you get the leader's favor? In fact, I didn't have a good life, and I disdained anyone's favor. My sister and I were both orphans and had depended on each other since we were children, so I instinctively wanted to explain, but the person in front of me had been carried away by the anger of jealousy, and my tragic death was the most satisfying way for her to vent her anger. In the end, my own sister didn't hesitate to push me off the high wall of the base. Outside the high wall, there were continuous roars and dense zombies. The fear came before the pain, then came the intense pain as my limbs and all the skin on my body were gnawed on. If I could do it all over again, I would definitely drag her to hell with me. 02. When I opened my eyes again, my sister and I were reborn on the day when we chose our abilities. I lowered my head and recalled the experiences of my previous life, and I didn't respond to her request for the healing ability for a moment, but she mistakenly thought that I didn't want to give it to her. This made her even more convinced that the healing ability was a rare and good thing, so without saying a word, she rushed towards me excitedly, snatched the crystal core and swallowed it directly. It's my turn to enjoy the good life this time. You just wait to deal with those disgusting things every day. Feeling disgusted, I shrank away from her, avoiding her touch. There was only one golden crystal core left in the box. That was the power that I had yearned for in my previous life. Seeing that I didn't take it immediately, Nova's expression became even more triumphant. Don't worry, sister, when I become a famous person in the base, I will definitely take good care of you. She gritted her teeth and squeezed out the words, take good care of, and her wide-open eyes seemed to want to devour me alive. So what if she was reborn? My silly sister was as stupid and selfish as ever. I looked submissive and said, then I'll have to trouble you, sister. We have plenty of time ahead. 03. The next morning, Nova was still in her dreams, but I opened my eyes. I took out the golden crystal core that I hadn't taken yet. It sparkled with a sharp luster in the sunlight. At first glance, it looked no different from the day before, but if you compared it carefully, you could find that the transparent film that originally wrapped around the outside of the crystal core had disappeared. This layer of film was almost integrated with the crystal core itself. And it was very difficult for ordinary people to notice anything unusual. If I hadn't known the inside story in advance because of my rebirth, I'm afraid I would have made the same mistake again. At that time, I was regarded as a mobile human medical tool, treating the wounded day and night, regardless of the weather, until my ability was exhausted, then recovered, and exhausted again. Using my ability a lot made my ability level rise rapidly, and I gradually discovered the problem in my ability. Every time I used my ability one more time, I could feel the failure of my internal organs more clearly. Later, I learned that in order to prevent others from stealing the crystal core, the researchers added a colorless and odorless poisonous film to the surface of the crystal core. There was no problem with contact, but taking it directly would lead to severe poisoning. As the ability was continuously used and developed, the toxicity would appear and gradually increase. There was no cure, and it would only end with death. But the method to dissolve this layer of film was incredibly simple. Just melt it with body temperature. It is said that it was provided for the high-level people to deal with emergencies. It's really thoughtful. Yesterday, Nova swallowed the crystal core directly. Her death was just a matter of time. I carefully wiped the crystal core through a cloth. Only after confirming that there was no danger at all did I swallow it. The seemingly hard crystal core melted as soon as it entered my mouth. Immediately, a warm current flowed through my limbs, and along with it came a significant improvement in my perception. I closed my eyes and felt the changes in my body. When I opened my eyes again, I could already see the faintly flowing golden light in the air. I stretched out my hand and concentrated. Slowly, a metal needle cone with a bulging middle and pointed ends took shape in my palm, with a change of my consciousness. The metal cone immediately turned into golden dots and melted into the air. As the zombie virus swept across the world, the environment of the Earth was also changing drastically. Metal elements began to appear in the air as the proficiency of the metal ability increased. Ability users could even freely control the metal elements in the human body in the later stage. This was no different from a walking human killing weapon. The base regularly drew the blood of ability users every month, calling it a physical examination, but in fact, it was to monitor the degree of ability users' mastery of their abilities. When the integration degree reached a dangerous value, the base would assassinate the ability users in the name of cleaning up. I'm afraid this is also the reason why Nova worked so hard to kill zombies but never got any benefits. They were afraid. No leader likes something that is out of control, especially something that can threaten themselves. What's more, in the apocalypse, everyone is in danger, and human nature has long been destroyed along with the brilliant urban civilization. I got up and stood by the window, lifting a corner of the curtain. If there were no accidents, Arthur was already on his way. 04. Under the shadow of my previous life, I woke up very early. I sat quietly by the side, looking at my sister's sleeping appearance. Under my creepy gaze, Nova suddenly woke up with a start. She swallowed, and then became angry and ashamed because she was scared by me. The healing ability is already mine. It's no use for you to daydream anymore. Oh, I don't want it at all. My indifferent attitude aroused her dissatisfaction. Before her sharp and piercing voice could penetrate the wall, I kindly pointed in the direction of the window. There were quite a few zombies downstairs, and that shout was no different from the dining hall's meal bell, but she seemed to have misunderstood something. She gave me a glare and then quickly got up from the bed. She piled all the few clothes she had from the wardrobe onto the bed. Then she tried on the clothes one by one in front of the mirror, so she remembered Arthur. When Arthur met us in the previous life, he already had an ability. But after all, he couldn't withstand the zombie seed tactics. The other side had a large number of zombies, and his ability was quickly exhausted. He also suffered a lot of injuries during his escape. However, his ability was fire, which was different from ours. Ours were activated through artificial crystal cores. They were unique. There was only one healing ability user in the world, and there was also only one metal ability user. And he awakened his ability after being infected with the zombie virus. Yes, there was a certain chance of awakening an ability after being infected with the zombie virus. Therefore, many crazy people went forward one after another. They didn't want to be subservient anymore, and they didn't want to live in humiliation. They shouted that it was better to take a gamble than to live a cowardly life. In the end, most of these people became members of the zombie army while thinking. Nova finally chose her clothes. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Sister, let's go out and find food quickly. In the previous life, when my sister and I went out to look for food, we accidentally saved Arthur, who was being chased by zombies. Of course, my sister wanted to go alone, so that she could monopolize the favor of the future base leader. She could do that in the previous life, but now, she had to drag me along. Because the person who now had the powerful metal ability was me, 05. There was a medium-sized supermarket near the apartment. It was located in a remote area with sparse traffic, so it became our first choice in the previous life. It was also there that we saved Arthur. The journey was very smooth, and we hardly had a direct confrontation with the zombies. Nova hid behind me the whole time, like a quail. She was even almost scared to scream by a severed leg. I quickly grabbed a piece of clothing fragment from the ground and stuffed it into her mouth. I said in an unfriendly tone, "If you want to die, go far away, don't drag me into it." I had thought that she would be useless without an offensive ability, but I didn't expect her to be this useless. After entering the supermarket, I quietly used my ability to turn into a cone and penetrate the zombie's head. Then I turned the cone back into little dots of elemental light and let it dissipate in the air. After clearing the zombies, I took the lead in going to the daily necessities area and getting a waterproof mountaineering bag. I was choosing medicines, and she was looking out at the door, waiting for Arthur. I was searching for food, and she changed her posture of looking out. When I carried the bag on my back and was ready to return, she had already changed into her seventh posture that she thought was attractive. "What a fool," I said. "It seems that he won't come. I'm leaving first. Do as you like." She ignored me. I was speechless and turned around directly. The next second, a figure fleeing in a panic was running towards the supermarket in the distance. There were also quite a few zombies following behind. TSK, what bad luck. Arthur wasn't a good person, but I couldn't let him die so easily either. When he was about to be cut up, I silently turned into a silver needle and pierced the head of the zombie closest to him. When he gradually distanced himself from the danger behind him, I created a metal ball on the ground to make him fall. By the time he reached the supermarket, I had already killed most of the zombies behind him. Seeing that there was no danger, Nova, who had been pretending to be dead, suddenly jumped out to fawn on him. It was so scary. "Fortunately, you're okay. Let me help you treat your injuries." She used her healing ability to cure most of Arthur's injuries. The man's eyes immediately sparkled with amazement. There was an obscure look in the depths of his eyes. After Arthur expressed his gratitude to her, he turned to me instead and asked if it was me who had killed the zombies just now. Seeing that the attention was diverted, Nova gave me a vicious look. I chuckled and denied it. No, maybe it was a ghost. This denial was exactly what my sister wanted. She quickly echoed that there should be someone passing by and doing a good deed out of righteousness. She also especially emphasized that her sister was just an ordinary person without the slightest strength, without any ability. Under her enthusiastic invitation, Arthur, seemingly passively but actually actively, followed us back to the apartment. "My dear sister, you've just invited a wolf into the house. In the previous life, the number of people he had killed was much more than the zombies you killed, 06. At this time, the small apartment was divided into two spaces. With his tall and handsome appearance and his subtle and ambiguous tone, Arthur quickly coaxed Nova so much that she lost her sense of direction. Just like how he had deceived me in the previous life, the two of them were snuggling up on one side of the room as if no one else was around. My sister would occasionally throw me a provocative look. When I took out the food from the backpack, she suddenly froze. Yes, she could only see the man in her eyes. How could she remember that the original purpose of going to the supermarket was to get supplies? Leaning in Arthur's arms, she ordered haughtily, "Rory, why are you so selfish? Do you want to eat all the food by yourself?" Although Arthur frowned, he still said gently, "Rory, it doesn't matter if you don't like me. Nova is after all your own sister. You can't just watch your sister starve to death, can you?" It's so disgusting to hear him call like that. You both have abilities. If you don't want to starve to death, go find food yourself. I casually pointed in the direction of the door, too lazy to pay attention to these two immoral people. I ate the compressed biscuits in my hand on my own. The crunching sound when I bit them was particularly harsh in the silence. Just as Nova was angry and about to come and snatch the food, roars suddenly came from all directions. We were surrounded by zombies. But in a short while, the sound disappeared without a trace. As if nothing had happened, knock, 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 there was a rhythmic knocking sound outside the door. I slowed down my breathing and stared intently in the direction of the door, not daring to relax for a moment. Surely a very powerful ability user has come and solved all the zombies. Nova was both surprised and delighted. Before I could stop her, she had already opened the door. Outside the door stood a young man in white. His soft short hair was neatly attached to his forehead, and his pair of dark eyes were bottomless. When he saw her looking over, the young man smiled slightly, and his sculpted features immediately came to life. "I passed by here just now and noticed that there were survivors, so I helped you get rid of all the zombies. I wonder if I could stay here for one night." He deliberately emphasized the pronunciation of the words, with a hint of hoarseness, more like a smile, or a coax. Nova's ears suddenly turned red, and she affably invited him in. I narrowed my eyes and took an imperceptible step back, trying my best to reduce my presence, but the man turned around and walked towards me, slowly extending his hand. "Hello, sister, I'm Adrian." Before I could react, Nova couldn't wait to take his hand. She said in an affected manner, "Hello, little brother, my name is Nova, and my ability is healing." I curled my lips into a faint smile and raised my eyes to look at Arthur, who was being ignored beside us. His face looked even uglier than mine. It seemed that he had already recognized the identity of the young man in front of him. As for my elder sister, she might as well have written the word like on her face. Adrian forced a smile in response, but his gaze remained fixed on me. Finally, Nova couldn't hold back any longer. "Let me introduce my younger sister to you." Oops, she hurried towards me but accidentally tripped, and a flash of light came from her sleeve. It was something she had secretly picked up from the ground when she was out, and it was stained with zombie blood. Even if it made a tiny wound on the body of an ability user, that person would immediately become one of those disgusting creatures. 1 second before she pounced on me, a cold voice sounded, "What dirty hands." 07. Adrian wiped his hands on the curtain as if in disgust. Beside him was Nova, whose right hand had been broken. Adrian placed his slender index finger against his lips. "Shoo. Be quiet." Nova was so frightened that she was stunned. After choking a few times, she finally didn't dare to cry out loud. She bit her lower lip tightly and cast a pleading look at Arthur. Arthur hesitated for a moment, but thinking that she had the healing ability, he decided to stand in front of her. Burning flames ignited in his palm and were aimed at Adrian, but Adrian seemed not to hear it. Instead, he walked towards me step by step. I stood still where I was. When our eyes met, behind my calm gaze was an unfathomable undercurrent. With every step he took, the growls around us became louder. Before I knew it, the streets and corridors were already crowded with densely packed zombies. I had seen him before, in the deepest room in the basement of the medical station in my previous life. There was a person trapped by iron chains as thick as an arm. Later, he became the Zombie King. It seemed that he had also been reborn, according to the progress in my previous life. Adrian was still a human ability user at this time, but he was being hunted down by the human high-ups because of his special ability. Since he became the Zombie King ahead of time this time, something must have gone wrong. The crashing down of the door panel interrupted my thoughts. Before the zombies rushed in, I decisively broke the window, and Adrian jumped out first. Behind me, Nova was screaming and cursing like a madwoman. "Rory, are you crazy? Hurry up and come over to help block the door." I raised a bright and sarcastic smile. Don't worry, sister, you're a healing ability user. You're not that easy to die. Living is much scarier than dying. After saying that, I jumped without looking back. Little zombie, catch sister steadily. 08. Adrian's figure was as fast as lightning. He gathered his strength and jumped, and firmly caught me in his arms. I wanted to get down and walk by myself, but he held me down firmly. Sister, after not seeing each other for so long, have you missed me? He leaned pitifully in front of me, but there was a hint of cunning in his eyes that couldn't be hidden. I was helpless. Let me down. The day before I died in my previous life was the last time I saw him. The next day, he successfully broke free from his imprisonment and escaped. The base was in chaos, and I was also tied to the city wall by Nova during the chaos, logically speaking. It seemed that his unintentional actions had also contributed to my death. He bit his lower lip. Looking very wronged. It seems that sister doesn't want to see me. Then I'll just leave now. As he said that, he was about to put me down, but I suddenly hugged him even tighter, which was unusual for me, because at the moment when we were about to land, the originally quiet zombies suddenly stared at me menacingly. Adrian proudly lifted me up a little and swaggered through the crowd of zombies while holding me in his arms. He was as leisurely as if he were going for a stroll. Under the shocked gazes of the two people upstairs, we gradually walked away. My encounter with Adrian was purely accidental. When I was exploring around the medical station that day, I discovered his presence. Humans created the zombie virus and, on this basis, extracted crystal nuclei containing abilities. Essentially, the abilities awakened by the virus were no different from the abilities artificially extracted. Therefore, I keenly sensed that, like me, he also had the ability in the aspect of healing. I poked his delicate and bloodless face. Hey, you were also locked up because of your healing ability, right? He lazily lifted his eyelids, and a pair of long and narrow peach blossom eyes glanced at me for a moment before closing again. He was quite good-looking, but he had a bit of a bad temper. I didn't give up and poked his face on the other side. You look younger than me. I'll call you little brother. Little brother, what did you do wrong to be beaten like this? If you're obedient like sister, you can avoid a lot of suffering. Finally, he was so annoyed by me that he bared his teeth at me. My ability is regeneration. Anyone who gets close to me doesn't live long. I advise you to get as far away as possible. He was like a small animal whose tail had been stepped on. Perhaps it was the mutual understanding and sympathy between healing ability users. Since then, I would always find an opportunity to sneak in and visit him. Sometimes I brought a steamed bun and a glass of milk, and sometimes I brought a flower. Of course, there were also times when I went empty-handed, and I would just tell him about what happened outside. From the initial mind your own business to later calling me sister all the time. Slowly, I became more and more familiar with Adrian. I also learned from him about his tragic experiences. Unlike me, his regeneration ability was passive. He couldn't output his ability like I could, but he could make himself immortal. Even if only his head was left, Adrian could regrow a complete body. Because of this, his flesh and blood were supplied to the human high-ups to fulfill their dream of eternal life. Ordinary ability users couldn't be infected with the zombie virus for the second time. Otherwise, they would completely mutate, but Adrian was different. He had a strong resistance to the virus, so the high-ups injected the virus into his body many times to promote the research of the vaccine. Unfortunately, he didn't make it through. In the end, he became the zombie king, half human and half zombie. Those greedy people were always like this, trying to control everything that couldn't be controlled. In the end, they could only reap what they had sown. 09. The once glorious city cluster now only had one building in the city center still standing. In the presidential suite on the top floor, Adrian and I sat facing each other. He called a few zombie minions to bring a basket of fruits, and he picked an apple from it and started peeling it. Sister, now that I've become the zombie king, I'm not afraid of being caught by them. As he said that, he proudly raised his chin. As if waiting for my praise, I rubbed the center of my brows. So you deliberately turned yourself into this neither human nor ghost state. He nodded like a puppy, as if there was a fluffy big tail behind him wagging excitedly. I frowned even deeper. Didn't you think about what would happen if you failed? What would happen if you completely turned into a mindless zombie? After hearing what I said, the light in his eyes became even brighter, and he happily moved closer to me. Is sister caring about me? I felt exhausted. Seeing that my face was gradually turning ugly, Adrian became serious in an instant. I was wrong. I promise I won't do it again. How about sister? You hit me. He spoke sincerely, but he didn't stop making small movements. He was almost leaning against me. I sighed, pushed his head away, and then took the apple from his hand. I quickly stuffed it into his mouth, under his mournful gaze. I lovingly rubbed his hair to comfort him. The next second, my face became serious again. Since we've been given a second chance at life, we must never repeat the same mistakes. It's time to get rid of those scumbags who don't deserve to be human. Those scumbags referred to the high-ups in the Dawn base, including Arthur. Dawn, what an ironic name. They developed the zombie virus under the banner of human evolution and the elimination of the weak, but before the vaccine was successfully developed, the virus got out of control. So they decided to conduct experiments on living people. The people who disappeared inexplicably in the base were all locked in the basement of the medical station and voluntarily sacrificed themselves for the future of humanity. The air conditioner that was always on in the station was to reduce the activity of the virus. Similarly, the movement of zombies would also be restricted in a low-temperature environment, but more importantly, it was to slow down the decay rate of the corpses. Yes. In the eyes of the high-ups, even dead experimental subjects had value. The experimental subjects wouldn't be freed until the last bit of their value was squeezed out. Their final destination was the stomachs of the zombies. Surprised, aren't you? But this is human nature. It wasn't the end of the world that destroyed human nature. It was human nature that nurtured the end of the world. 10. The bloody memories replayed in my mind over and over again, and Adrian's face also darkened. He took out the apple from his mouth. Sister, we must never let those people go. Whatever you want to do, I'll cooperate with you. The first thing to do next was to enhance my ability. Only when I was strong myself could I have the right to speak and not be at the mercy of others. Adrian cooperatively called a large group of zombie minions, old and young, some missing arms and legs, all kinds, but as soon as they saw me, they all stood still like puppets. I was going to practice actual combat, not hit wooden stakes. After giving Adrian a good lecture, he became much more obedient. Although the movement speed of the zombies was still much slower than normal, it was barely acceptable. Adrian came to watch my training every day, and he stuck to me like a piece of chewing gum and couldn't be driven away. In desperation, I had to let him be. After 2 months of devil training, I had already mastered the metal ability to a great extent, without reaching out my hand. I could conjure up dozens of silver needles just by using my mental power. My perception of metal objects within a few miles around me had also reached the limit, and I could manipulate their movement and shape at will. I could even construct a completely enclosed metal space. Adrian cheered loudly from the side. I patted his head with satisfaction. Silly boy, leave all the brain work to sister in the future. You just find a shady place to stay, so as not to be noticed by them. He nodded solemnly. Then, the next day, when I was looking for a car in the city, I didn't encounter a single zombie along the way. On the third day, when I was about to drive out of the city, a group of zombies suddenly appeared. They didn't want to bite me, they just simply blocked my way. I quickly and cleanly cleared the roadblocks. On the seventh day, in front of the base gate, I saw a familiar figure among the people queuing up to enter the base. Sure enough, taking advantage of the inattentiveness of the armed personnel checking at the gate, I grabbed his ear and quickly dragged him to an inconspicuous corner. It hurts, it hurts. Adrian looked at me with tears in his eyes, and his eyes were red all around. I sneered but also let go of my hand. Stop pretending. Zombies don't have the sense of pain. Seeing that his act of feigning injury had been exposed, he had to hold back his tears, but the word aggrieved might as well have been written on his face. I supported my forehead and sighed. I didn't want you to come for your own good. Those people have been looking for you. I'm afraid you won't even be able to pass the security check on the first floor of the base. It was simply like delivering oneself to the enemy from 1,000 miles away. The gift was small, but the thought was deep, but I didn't say it out loud for fear of hurting his self-esteem. He pouted but still refused to give in. What if that person does something bad to sister again? I'm afraid I won't be able to save you in time. Which person? I was puzzled for a second and then immediately realized the kid was jealous. You mean that beast Arthur? Don't worry. I won't even let him touch a single hair of mine. What if he does touch you? Then I'll chop it off. After much persuasion, I finally sent this ancestor away. Since I had never revealed my ability in front of Arthur, he wouldn't search for my whereabouts in a big way for the time being. I entered the base unimpeded. I hadn't walked a few steps when I met someone I knew. It really was a narrow path for enemies. 11. Before the other person noticed me, I quickly covered half of my face with a face towel and quickly blended into the crowd. Nova, dressed in a white dress, passed by me. It hadn't been long, and she was already as thin as a skeleton, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Behind her was a large group of strong and sturdy bodyguards, which formed a sharp contrast. Because of the improvement of my ability, I could clearly distinguish the difference between ordinary people and ability users. Those were not ordinary ability users, although my actions were restricted in my previous life. Arthur had never assigned so many people to supervise me at the same time. My ability to know the situation had earned me a lot of freedom from him. It seemed that during the few months I was away, my dear sister had probably done a lot of stupid things. Stop dawdling. Hurry up. If the leader punishes us for being late later, we won't get any benefits, and we won't make it easy for you either. One of the big men pushed Nova, who was still choosing fruits at the fruit stall, viciously. What are you choosing? Don't think you're superior just because you're with the leader. What's so great about the healing ability? You still have to be locked up and used for experiments. Sarcasm, abuse, disdain, contempt, humiliation. Sister, this is what I have suffered, and now it's your turn. I wonder how you feel now. You must be very happy to have Arthur's favor as you wished. I didn't waste any more time and decisively turned around and walked towards the dilapidated alley. The person behind me was roughly pushed to the ground, while my steps were brisk and light. We all have our own futures. Sister, open your eyes and take a good look. This is how the most powerful ability in the apocalypse is used. 12. It was still quite bright when I arrived, which was not conducive to sneaking around, so I wandered around the alleys where the poor lived for a long time, waiting for the night to fall. This was the area with the weakest supervision in the entire base. Most of the people living here were ordinary people without power or influence, mostly the elderly, children, or those with disabilities, but it was rare to see young and strong men and young women. Most of the former had become bait to attract zombies, losing their lives in the bellies of the zombies, or had been pressed into service as conscripts, doing the hardest and most tiring work in the base. Those who were unlucky became experimental subjects, unable to live and unable to die. As for young women, their fate was no better than Nova's. The beautiful ones were raped, and those who were not good-looking were dragged away to do manual labor. Their final destination was without exception the herd of zombies. To facilitate research, the people above had deliberately raised a group of zombies, specifically for experiments. At the same time, in order to better maintain the activity of the zombies, it was necessary to continuously provide fresh flesh and blood. Thus, there were continuous disappearances of people. Perhaps some people had already noticed something was wrong, but so what? The sun still rose as usual. Before the darkness eroded them, they pretended that everything was bright. Everyone was deceiving themselves. I simulated the action route in my mind over and over again, until I was sure there were no mistakes. The thick night had already shrouded the entire land. In my previous life, I had tried to escape, so I secretly memorized the range of all the surveillance cameras in the base, but my ability was too weak, and with the toxicity taking effect, I had to give up. This time, I successfully avoided the inspections of all the informants and managed to sneak into Arthur's room. He was very perceptive and regained consciousness immediately even though he was in a state of sleep. Unfortunately, in a battle, A single second could mean the difference between life and death. It's you, Jean. He was too late. I controlled the blade to cut off his tongue to prevent his cries from attracting unnecessary trouble. At the same time, I conjured up 4 metal cones as thick as a calf's leg and nailed him to the bedboard. I completely severed his tendons in his hands and feet. I put my hand to my mouth. Shoo, if you beg for mercy, I'll be even harsher. When those innocent people knelt down and begged you not to use them for experiments, did you show any mercy? Arthur stared at me like a madman, his whole body shaking violently, and he even lost control of his bladder and bowels. Look, whether it's the victim or the perpetrator, when faced with a threat to their lives, their subconscious reactions are the same. The villain holding the butcher's knife is also a coward who is fierce on the outside but weak on the inside. There was a smile on the corner of my mouth. By the way, I am indeed a metal ability user. Congratulations, you guessed right. So what reward should I give you? How about calling a little friend to liven things up? After saying that, I opened the window of his bedroom, and a zombie eagle flew in from outside. While I was improving my ability, Adrian wasn't idle either. He had developed his mental power to a very high level and could now control all things infected by the virus at will, when he wasn't by my side. It was through this eagle that we communicated with each other. I stretched out my hand, and the zombie eagle docilely retracted its claws and stood obediently on my left arm. You've had a hard journey, now it's time for a meal. As soon as the words fell, the zombie eagle immediately regained its cruel and bloodthirsty nature and launched a one-sided massacre against Arthur on the bed. After the buffet was over, only a large black hole was left on his chest. He lay on the bed, barely breathing, with more air going in than coming out. But I am a cautious person. After confirming that he had no more breath, I specifically cut off his head and let the zombie eagle carry it back and play with it like a ball. Sister, it'll be your turn soon. 13. I entered Nova's room through the window. She didn't even lock the window, which saved me the trouble of breaking it by force. A crescent moon hung in the sky, casting a silver light. There was a figure sitting upright on the bed. You know everything, don't you? Nova spoke as if she was calm, but in fact, she was on the verge of collapse. Of course, sister, you insisted on swapping with me. Why are you regretting it now? I raised an eyebrow. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes and slowly slid down her gaunt face. Sister, since you can come here, you must be able to save me out, right? She stared at me, holding on to her last hope. I nodded slightly. She moved back slightly, almost imperceptibly, and continued to pour out her grievances to me. I leaned against the wall boredly, crossing my arms. Before she could press the button, I moved behind her like a ghost. At the same time, I cut off her tongue in both hands. This button looks very familiar. How about you tell me what it's for, sister? I asked with a fake smile. Even in this situation, my sister still wouldn't let me go. In my previous life, when I was planning to escape once, I accidentally pressed this button. Once pressed, impenetrable isolation walls would rise at all the entrances and exits of this room, trapping people inside and killing them. By then, when the support from the high-ups arrived, there would be no way to escape even with wings. As sisters connected by blood, I knew my sister too well. She and I had already reached the point where one of us had to die. Don't worry. Arthur has already gone down first. You'll soon go down to accompany him. By the way, do you know why he, as a high-up, appeared near the apartment? I leaned close to her ear and said word by word, because he was hunting down the person who stole the crystal core, and from the first moment you saw him, you revealed your ability. Nova stared at me in disbelief, with tears, snot, and thick blood smearing all over her face. She sat down on the ground, laughing and crying, as if mocking herself. She had lost to me again. I squatted down and looked her in the eye. Sister, do you know why you lost? Because you only care about yourself. You're too self-righteous. Sister, you're too arrogant. You thought that with the healing ability that everyone supported, you could have everything, but you didn't know that in the apocalypse, the only way to survive was to hold the knife in your own hand, instead of dealing with her directly. I handcuffed her to the balcony. You're no different from those beasts in human skin, sister. Watch carefully. This is how an ability should be used. 14. I covered the entire base with my consciousness. One after another, metal cages rose up in the residences of the high-ups in the base, the medical station, and the gathering place of ability users. They glistened with a cold luster under the merciless moonlight. According to my memory from my previous life, the bottommost layer of the basement of the medical station was a zombie pit, where the zombies were kept. To strengthen the defense, the entire medical station was built with metal, which happened to provide me with great convenience. I slowly stretched out my hand. The buildings of the medical station above the ground were all uprooted and floated in the air. The frontline wounded were living there. Then I gathered my strength into a fist, and the metal partitions between the underground building floors instantly decomposed. The researchers inside fell straight to the bottommost layer and became the zombies' food. For a moment, cries of pain filled the air. After I dealt with the zombies in the pit, Adrian also arrived in time. I curled my lips into a smile. You're just in time. There were still some high-ups that needed to be dealt with, the wealthy area of the base. The commotion just now had woken everyone up. Under the protection of fully armed soldiers, those pot-bellied high-ranking personnel were hurriedly evacuating. I raised my hand, and the gun barrels that were originally aimed at me and Adrian instantly turned in the opposite direction. All the lackeys who were helping the evildoers were shot in the head. One of the high-ups recognized Adrian, and his eyes were filled with greed. No matter who it is, as long as you catch him, you'll be rewarded with 100 crystal cores, instantly. The wind of a fist blew past my ear. The next moment, screams rang out one after another. The zombie eagle that was originally hidden in the night revealed its true appearance. I protected Adrian behind me, and the scene in front of me was like a purgatory. When some of the high-ups were about to escape from the chaotic crowd, metal walls rose up from the ground, cutting off all the remaining people's hope of survival. Half an hour later, there were white bones everywhere. I stretched up my hand again, and all the metal cages instantly disappeared. When I went to the balcony again, Nova was already dead. The biggest cancer had been eradicated, and there was only one last thing left: eliminate all the zombies, and also deal with myself. 15. 2 months later, the Dawn base. Oh no, it should be called the Happy base now. There was a new human leader there. It didn't matter who it was, and I didn't care either. In a way, having experienced 2 lives, I could be considered indifferent. I didn't have a strong sense of identity or belonging to any specific human base. All I did was just because my morality was intermittently noble. Some humans were disappointing, but the human race didn't deserve to be exterminated. On a sunny morning, I sent an invitation letter to all the human bases, inviting them to witness my death. A tree that stands out in the forest is sure to be struck by the wind. In the past 2 months, the human bases had extended an olive branch to me again and again, hoping to restart the research on the virus and abilities to save all of humanity. I refused all of them, and as expected, I was hunted down. Only by dying without a burial place in front of them could they completely give up, so that there wouldn't be a second Dawn base. There were many people who came to observe, and among them were those who still wanted to win me over. There was a steep cliff, and below was the churning and roaring magma. Under the eyes of everyone, I unleashing power like crazy. Roar. Actually, I hadn't been doing well, and I disdained anyone's favor. People have the tendency to flock to the strong, and zombies are the same. Plus, the virus and abilities originally came from the same source. Therefore, the stronger the ability, the more attractive it is to zombies. I stood on the edge of the cliff, my eyes blurred by the hot air blowing up from below. I jumped off, then a figure rushed over in a hurry and jumped down without hesitation. There was a huge crashing sound in the magma, and sparks flew everywhere. With the mental control of the Zombie King, the zombies all over the world seemed to be greatly summoned and rushed here like crazy one after another. Then they fell into the boiling magma one by one and disappeared without a trace. until the last zombie on Earth fell into the magma. Thus, the zombie crisis was completely over. 16. Extra story. The process of falling was much longer than I had imagined. Countless splashing magma and rock debris were flying in the air. I was just about to activate my ability when I was startled by the person who suddenly appeared in front of me. It was Adrian. Before taking action, I told him the whole plan of faking my death. The Zombie King desired abilities more than ordinary zombies. I even locked him up on purpose to prevent him from jumping down with me. I'm also a zombie, sister. Don't be soft-hearted. A sigh fell. An airtight metal ball wrapped the two of them tightly. Just as they were about to touch the surface of the magma, it stopped. Story 2. My zombie makeup video accidentally went viral. After work, the big boss cornered me against a wall. Honey, I've been looking for you. Below his collarbone was a rotting patch of corpse blemish. 01. When the zombie virus broke out, my husband was calmly grinding coffee. I was so frustrated, I almost smacked him. Did you secretly go out and bite people behind my back? Timothy looked hurt, his already purplish face turning even bluer. I thought you were sneaking around behind my back. The lockdown alarm blared in the distance, and the bloody scenes on TV were making my head buzz. Timothy brought over coffee and massaged my shoulders. What are you afraid of? Honey, we're both zombies. They can't do anything to us. I chuckled on the surface, but my legs were trembling secretly. Timothy was definitely a zombie, but he didn't know that I was just pretending. 02. I started pretending to be a zombie 6 months ago. Back then, I was a pretty obscure streamer, so obscure that my colleagues couldn't understand why I had been with the company for 3 years. That day, my zombie makeup video accidentally went viral. Among the many private messages, I noticed a cute figure. Sis, are you a zombie too? I found this little brother quite interesting, mainly because the figure he flaunted on his homepage was just my type, especially the volcano-shaped blue birthmark under his collarbone. It added a certain charm. Yes, I nodded frantically. Brother, I am too. I curled up the corners of my mouth, giving a devilish smile. I knew you were one too. Hurry up and reveal your true intentions for messaging me late at night. Do you want me to catch some rabbits for you to eat? Ha, taking the innocent route. Sister has 2 white rabbits at home. I can give them to you. That's so like me. From then on, I and the brother chatted passionately. By the 3rd day, we were calling each other hubby and wifey. I am a cultured streamer who never flirts with fans, except the handsome ones. 03. Then, I was reported by a colleague. I was so obscure. Why would you report me? I will never be happy again. After work, the big boss called me to his office. I thought, is firing me such a big deal that it troubles the boss? Looking at his sculpted profile, my DNA stirred fiercely. I had been admiring him from a distance for so many years, never expecting him to be so handsome up close. That was the first time Timothy and I talked face to face. He stared at me silently, his long legs crossed, lazily leaning against the floor-to-ceiling window. We stared at each other for 10 minutes. Boss, isn't that pose tiring? I realized something was off with his complexion. Boss, I just wanted to give the fans a little treat. What, you gave it to someone else too? His complexion seemed even more off. As I looked up trying to recall the brothers and little brothers from my career, Timothy had already approached me. He cornered me against the wall, his eyes suddenly bursting with the light of a puppy dog. Honey, I've been looking for you for a long time. Up close, I finally understood. The blue mark under his collarbone was a rotting patch of corpse blemish. He wasn't joking. He really was a zombie. I advise everyone, do not fall in love online. You never know what species you're connecting with through the internet. 04. Extreme hunger pulled me out of my memories. The lockdown in the neighborhood had lasted all day. Zombies were howling in packs downstairs, and I had eaten all the snacks hidden at home. My stomach was so empty it was frightening. Tears of regret slid from the corners of her eyes, while Timothy happily watched Resident Evil in the living room. When we got married, that dog of a man made such sweet promises to me. I've never met anyone with my constitution before. We two are the only zombies in the world. You and I are a match made in heaven. And now he pulls this stunt. I feel like murdering my husband. Baby, what's wrong? You look so down. Should I go out and grab a few people for you? Timothy said as he flexed his fingers, his eyes glowing with excitement. Let's not talk about that. We're supposed to be civilized zombies, I quickly interjected, crossing my arms. Although Timothy is a zombie, he has never bitten anyone. His diet consisted of live chickens and ducks, but we've run out of ducks and rabbits at home, he said with tearful eyes. You wouldn't consider eating our corgi, would you, dum-dum? Our corgi was shivering under the sofa at that moment. Thanks. But no thanks, I'm not eating that. If you're really hungry, you could take a bite out of me, Timothy offered, showing his arm with its well-defined muscles. However, at this moment, he had lost all appeal to me. Eat your head. I'm craving hot pot, barbecue, crayfish, fried chicken, pizza, spicy chicken feet. I couldn't wait any longer. While Timothy was asleep, I planned to sneak out to get some food supplies. As soon as I moved, the mattress bounced, and Timothy pulled me back, rubbing his face against mine in a drowsy state. Where's my wife going? Let's cuddle. Zombies have very sensitive senses and can detect many things that humans cannot. Just as I was trying to break free from his embrace, Timothy suddenly perked up and whispered, "Something's coming." His ears twitched, probably hearing something. Dum-Dum also crawled up from under the bed and started barking towards the window. I heard nothing and could only look in the direction of his gaze. The scenery outside the window, it was as calm as ever. Suddenly, a round shadow appeared on the window. It looked like a human head hanging upside down. I clutched Timothy's arm tightly. The head began to forcefully slam against the window. Bang, bang, bang. The window frame vibrated rhythmically. Are zombies coming over? I hid behind Timothy. I didn't expect them to arrive so quickly. Don't be scared, wife. It's not a zombie, Timothy reassured me, protecting me with one hand and reaching for the window handle with the other. Oh no, I trembled in fear. When he opened the window, a soccer ball appeared, swinging feebly in the air. I think this is a distress signal. There's a 6-year-old girl living upstairs. Her parents are always out and leave her locked at home. Could it be that the child upstairs ran out of food? Possibly, but we also have no food left, Timothy said, craning his neck. Little sister, we've run out of food too. Okay, came a soft, weak voice from upstairs. Wait, I can give her a little. I remembered some snacks hidden behind the wardrobe and pulled them out. I bought these because I was feeling peckish. This is all I have left. Sob, my wife is really kind and cute, Timothy said, kissing my face 3 times. Stop kissing. Take it before I change my mind. Timothy took the snacks and looked out the window. We can just tie it to the soccer ball, right? Just as he reached out, a figure roared and grabbed his arm tightly. Our screams overlapped. Me, what's happening? A zombie got in. Him. My biceps hurt so much. My husband, a zombie, has just dragged another zombie into our home. What use do I have for this husband? The child who was just talking to us upstairs has now mutated. Her hair is disheveled, her eyes cloudy, and she's howling while staring at me. Timothy is desperately pulling on the hand of the small zombie, his body twisting like a pretzel. Honey, I didn't realize you were so flexible, I comment from 3 meters away, watching the scene unfold. Honey, do zombies fight each other too? Timothy, grimacing in pain, replies, I don't know. Besides you, this is the first zombie I've encountered. Can you beat it? Can I not beat a child, as it turns out? He couldn't. Timothy is knocked to the ground, and the small zombie starts rushing towards me. I quickly dive into a wardrobe and firmly shut the door. Outside, the sounds of a scuffle erupt. After a while, it finally goes quiet outside, and I cautiously crack open the door. Honey, sob, sob, sob. I was braced for a scene of devastation, but to my relief, both the people and the dog are intact. Hey, Timothy makes a silly face at me. Don't be scared, honey. I immediately stop my sniffling and tears. He's so adorable. What happened? The little girl, who just a moment ago had grown fangs and claws, is now back to her cute, clueless self, playing with the dumb dog. Timothy sits down cross-legged beside me, stroking his chin. Just now, she bit my arm, and then she reverted back. I lift his arm to see, and indeed, there are 2 small dark blood holes. Could your blood be the antidote to the virus, I wonder? That would be strange indeed, although Timothy is a zombie. He never goes berserk or bites people. It turns out his blood has a special effect. For a moment, my mind races with terrifying scenarios of Timothy being taken away by a biochemical research facility, kept for research, subjected to endless tests and blood draws, until all his blood is drained. That would be great. Timothy laughs obliviously. I throw a chestnut at him, grate my foot, keep quiet and don't dare tell anyone. I quickly hand 2 lollipops to the girl upstairs. Sweetie. What's your name, sister? I'm Lauren. Lauren, you mustn't tell anyone about what happened today. Okay, sister. With the bribe complete, I feel satisfied. Just as I'm feeling smug, there's a knock at the door. Who is it? Timothy goes to answer, and I squeeze his hand, signaling him to be careful. It's okay, he reassures me and goes to open the door. A man's voice comes from outside. Delivery. The neighborhood is locked down. Where did this delivery come from? I rush to the door to stop Timothy from opening it, but I'm a step too late. The person outside has already squeezed in, and he really is a delivery guy. He looks young and naive. What's the matter? Timothy asks gently, worried the boy might be in trouble. I was delivering when I got locked out. I have nowhere to go. The boy's eyes dart around, fixating on the ground. We do have a spare room. Lauren runs out of the house, sees the boy, and immediately hides behind the dog, before I can react. The boy's voice turns into a roar. He has mutated. WTF. I quickly spring into action. Timothy steps in front of me. This boy's attacks are even more ferocious than the girl's. I rushed Lauren into another room and shut the door. I went to the storage room and grabbed a baseball bat, charging forward with it in hand. Despite the zombie's strong ability to recover, I managed to force it out the door. Timothy was forcefully pushing the zombie. It seemed like it didn't intend to bite, just continuously barking at the sky with its mouth wide open. Come on, bite me, bro. Just one bite. Are you dumb? Doesn't your arm hurt? While they were fighting, I seized the moment to open the security door. Catching my glance, Timothy forcefully pushed the zombie out. Just as the door was about to close, suddenly, the zombie turned back into a boy, kneeling on the ground, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just too hungry. I quickly checked Timothy for any exposed bites. Nothing. This is a characteristic of this type of zombie virus. It only lasts for a few minutes, otherwise, they're indistinguishable from normal people, the boy explained through his sobs. Day 1 of the apocalypse, I sat in the living room with 3 zombies, watching the cartoon about the wolf catching sheep. Now I understand. The infected only lose their sanity briefly and recover very quickly, Timothy said. Disappointed that his own blood wasn't the cure, I was relieved. I just timed it. About 20 minutes, the boy, Victor, felt very guilty about what had happened and shared everything he knew with us. If you transform more than 3 times, your body will severely degenerate, and eventually, you'll die. So, you guys are in danger then. Actually, the transformation can be controlled by will, but I just came into contact with some blood in the corridor, so that means blood makes you more prone to frenzy. He spoke as if he wasn't a zombie himself. Victor nodded. Falling silent, he didn't have many chances left. Timothy decided to implement a home quarantine policy. There were 2 more rooms in the house. Lauren and Victor could each stay in one, using the supplies delivered, until an official cure was developed. Timothy whispered in my ear, anyway, we're both zombies. We're not scared, right? He had a proud little smile. You think you're so superior. That night, we sat around the dining table eating boxed meals. Because I told Timothy to pretend we were a married couple, I finally had food to eat. I was enjoying my meal when Timothy quietly moved next to me. Baby, look, don't we look like a family of 4? He propped his cheeks with his hands, staring happily at the opposite side. According to Victor, he also has a sister about the same age, so he gets along well with Lauren, creating a really warm scene. How could I possibly give birth to such a big son? I paused with my fork in hand, afraid of exposing our identities. I hadn't told Timothy yet. We'll have one in the future anyway. Timothy playfully poked my arm, his gray-blue eyes cloudy and confused. As if he was drunk. Wait, he really was drunk. What did you drink? I was thirsty just now, had a couple of sips of water. It was clearly Chinese baijiu. That was supposed to be a delivery for someone else. Victor scratched his head. What happens if a zombie gets drunk? Timothy, ranting about going out to fight zombies. Big brother, stop messing around. You're a zombie too. There are 2 zombies sitting in your house. I dragged Timothy into the room, pushed him onto the bed, and covered him with a blanket. Finally, he quieted down. Timothy wrapped himself up like a cocoon, rolling over to my side. Wife, I'm here to serve you in bed. I punched him. The apocalypse is upon us and you're still goofing around. He just laughed mischievously, facing the window. He exclaimed, "Oh world, please don't end yet. I've just married and haven't enjoyed it enough yet." Does this man look like a cold and aloof CEO at all? Officially, the quarantine period is set for 2 weeks. During this time, no boxed meals can be delivered. In the residents' group chat, someone is gathering volunteers to stock up on supplies at the supermarket in the courtyard. I was the first to volunteer, announcing, "My husband will go." Timothy looked at me with a plaintive expression. "Baby, aren't you worried I might get hurt?" I immediately clung to him. "Honey, stock up on more supplies so we can prosper. And remember, Lauren and Victor are still growing. If you really don't want to go, I will. I'm not afraid of getting hurt." Timothy surrendered. "I can't win with you." Victor wanted to join as well. I escorted them to the entrance of the apartment block. The main door was tightly shut, the glass covered with panels that blocked the view from outside. It was then I realized, apart from us, everyone else was extremely tense, wrapped in various protective gear, ready for anything. The building manager reminded us, currently, it's hard to tell who might be infected, so naturally, everyone is a bit more cautious. Among the volunteers, there were a few familiar faces, especially the man from the 3rd floor, who was particularly noticeable. He was wielding a large axe, his eyes red. I heard he had already killed several zombies. People say those zombies can revert back to normal. Doesn't that mean he's committing murder? That's terrifying. I patted Timothy's back, reminding him to stay safe and not to reveal his identity. The building manager opened the glass door. Only one last rolling door separated us from the outside world. From our current view, the courtyard was empty, no zombies in sight. Suddenly, I felt uneasy. "No, I have to go with you." I grasped Timothy's hand tightly. "Are you worried about me, wife? I'm afraid you won't pick the snacks I like." Yesterday, the zombies seen around the building had now vanished. Probably they had returned to their normal state and gone home. The supermarket was just inside the quarantine zone. Near the community entrance, it took only 5 minutes to walk there. We actually made it there safely. As soon as we entered the supermarket, our group scattered in a flurry. At this point, whoever was slow would end up with nothing. Grab more drinking water first. I kicked a shopping cart to Victor and then dashed to the instant and frozen food section. I filled the cart with large packs of instant noodles and ready-to-eat hot pots. Batteries, lighters, flashlights. The supermarket owner was nowhere to be found, so we would have to pay him later. I moved as fast as lightning, while Timothy was calm as a chicken. "Wife, this packaging is so pretty. Wife, do you need?" Indeed, my worries were not unfounded. My shopping cart was stacked like a mountain, and so was Victor's. I patted Victor on the shoulder, proud. "You are such a good boy, much more useful than your dad." "Ha, nothing." We pushed our carts to the supermarket entrance and turned back to check on the safety of the others. In total, 7 people came out last. Besides us 3, there were the man with the axe, a young man, and a couple. The man with the axe had grabbed a lot of canned water and compressed biscuits. The couple didn't have much food. They came from the direction of the pharmacy section. The young man seemed inactive. "Let's not worry about him. We should go first." The girl in the couple seemed quite scared. Her boyfriend pulled her towards the exit. I grew nervous, ready to run at any moment. Brother, are you still there?" Timothy leaned forward to check. The shelves were empty. From the shadows of the gaps, a squeak sound was heard. I had a bad premonition. Run. In the darkness, a fierce roar exploded. Rows of shelves toppled over like dominoes, mixed with the young man's screams. In the shadows, there were at least a dozen murky figures. Timothy quickly pushed me out by the shoulder and then flung the shopping cart out as well. He patted my calf. Honey, run. I staggered a few steps, feeling the shadows around me blur into obscurity. Once we found a place to hide, we looked back only to find Timothy and Victor had disappeared into the swarm of zombies. 17. Timothy, Victor. I called their names softly. The girl and the couple quickly pulled at me. Don't shout. It'll provoke them. The guy leaned in. These are full-blown zombies. They've lost all humanity and are very aggressive. They seem to know a lot about zombies. Seeing my stunned expression, they introduced each other. This is William, a biologist, my husband, and this is Mila, a biochemist, my wife. They smiled at each other, their eyes almost sparkling with sweetness. These cases started appearing a month ago. We were originally doing research in the university lab and went home to get some things when our neighborhood was quarantined, Mila said, patting my shoulder. Don't worry, those who are just infected usually aren't attacked by full-blown zombies. William also gave me a knowing look. It turned out they had figured it out already. They should all be able to come back, muttered William. Outside, some of the not fully transformed infected turned back into humans and ran away. The others, losing their targets, halted in their tracks. They can't get through. The voice of Axe brother eerily emerged from behind. Before any of us could react, a grenade, thrown from his hand, exploded. You son of a. 18. The explosion stunned us momentarily. In the firelight, the zombies that were idly wandering just moments ago were now groaning in pain. Fortunately, the explosion was in an open space and didn't damage the walls of the buildings. Ha ha. I knew it. Only fire can deal with these creatures. Axe brother laughed maniacally. My husband just helped you close the door. Did you lose your conscience to a dog? If it weren't for the two holding me back, I really would have fought him to the death. They've been bitten. They're monsters now. They're just infected. Sick. You're the real monster, little girl. Surviving is what's most important. Axe brother gave a cold laugh and ran out. Why are there always these types of characters in post-apocalyptic survival? Husband, sob sob, Victor, sob sob. William and Mila dragged me back to the entrance of the apartment building, with 2 carts of supplies. Axe brother was already out of sight. I looked at the empty yard, feeling utterly despondent. Wasn't this supposed to be a Lauren zombie story? Where's my husband? Where is he? Honey, honey. Timothy's teasing voice rang out. Am I hallucinating from grief? I'm back. No. It really was him. 19. In the distance, Timothy and Victor rode a small electric scooter out of the flames and stopped right beside us. I was so happy I was at a loss for words, looking at Timothy, then at Victor. Both were unharmed. Sister, my delivery scooter was parked right outside. Isn't it faster to ride this? Victor, you did great. Victor scratched his head, smiling naively. Everyone's back. That's great. Let's go inside. The young couple was also very happy, but the door wouldn't open. Wait, the building manager cautiously pressed against the door lock. None of you were bitten, right? Our steps halted momentarily. I glanced nervously at the young couple, though they seemed more relaxed than I felt. Mila squinted with a smile. How could that be? Do we look like we've been bitten? The building manager trusted her more and lowered his guard. At that moment, the building manager's wife stepped forward. If you want to come in, you'll have to share some of your stuff with us. Why should we share with you when we risked our lives to get these? Mila was a bit annoyed. We've been guarding the gate for you, the manager's wife retorted confidently. Fine, let's share then. We compromised, and finally, the gate was opened. After sharing some supplies with the building manager, we hurried upstairs. As soon as we entered our home, Lauren and our dog rushed up to greet us, seeing their pure and joyful faces. I burst into tears. I won't go out again before the lockdown is lifted, and if I do, I'm a dog, I declared as I went back inside. I clung tightly to Timothy's chest. I was so scared. Honey, I thought I was going to inherit everything from you. I sobbed. Honey, why do I feel like you're almost happy about it? How could I be happy? I cried. Why did you guys fall so far behind? I bought some more stuff. Timothy grinned proudly. He brought over a plastic bag and laid out its contents on the table like treasures. Although we don't need these now, who knows how long the lockdown will last. I had to prepare for my wife. The bag was full of things for me: sanitary pads, heat packs, brown sugar, and goji berries. I was moved to tears, but then I saw the last item, a small blue box. Timothy, well done, and it's even strawberry flavored. The supplies we gathered were enough to sustain 4 people and 1 dog for 2 months. Going out was no longer an option. We could somehow muddle through. Occasionally, families with scarce supplies would ask us for help, and we'd share some with them. However, someone snitched on us. We were kicked out of the homeowners group chat. Owner of 1201, have some shame, will you? You've emptied the supermarket. Did you even pay? The supermarket is a communal resource of the residents. Monopolizing it isn't right. I heard that water and electricity might be cut off in a few days. Are they trying to exhaust everyone to death, so eventually only they will remain in this building? This couple has always been selfish, causing divisions at such a critical time. Do you even know me? After a whole day of cyberbullying, someone came knocking on our door. Open up, don't hide inside silently. I know you're home. The knocking was so intense it scared Lauren into tears. I looked through the peephole and saw a crowd outside, led by the building manager and his wife. With Axeman standing in the corner, these bastards, I was about to lose my temper, but Timothy stopped me. He nodded at me, signaling that he would handle it. There's nothing to discuss. Please go back. We risked our lives for these supplies, and we have 2 kids to feed. There are still some items in the supermarket. You can go get them yourselves if you want. His calm voice quieted the noise outside. We're not here for supplies. The building manager spoke softly. We heard someone in your family has mutated. His wife pushed him aside, looking fierce. Several residents reported being bitten on this floor. I suspect you're hiding the disease without reporting it. It's impossible. If someone were bitten, they wouldn't dare to come here so openly. There's nothing of the sort. Please go back. For everyone's safety, it's best we avoid contact. I tried to keep my tone calm. Are you feeling guilty? The building manager's wife raised her voice. You came back so late from that outing. Something must have happened. We absolutely won't jeopardize your safety. Please leave. I didn't want to argue with her anymore. I forcefully slammed the door and sat back down on the sofa with Timothy. Lauren and Victor looked up at me. It's okay, Lauren and Victor. Keep watching TV. Peppa Pig resumed on the TV. There was no longer any noise outside. Honey, something feels off. Timothy said uneasily. I feel it too. They didn't disappoint us. After a while, red fresh blood began to seep under the door. 23. Victor and Lauren's faces turned pale instantly. Hold on, Lauren. I held Lauren tightly, covering her eyes and nose, and carried her back to the room. Victor quickly scurried back to his room too. He shut the door heavily. It's okay, Lauren. Everything's going to be okay. I patted Lauren's back to help her calm down. Sis, I want some candy. Her little face was sweaty, her lips pale. Okay. I still have 2 pieces of chocolate. They're all yours, sis. I really miss Mom and Dad. All right, once the lockdown is lifted, we can see Mom and Dad. But like this, will they still love me? Of course, Lauren, you're just sick. You'll get better. Lauren's small body gradually calmed down in my arms. The fit stopped, but on the other end, Victor's room emitted a low rumbling growl. He was banging on the room door. Thud, thud. He had locked the door when he entered. 24, outside. Timothy was pounding on the door forcefully. His voice was hoarse, restrained yet dangerous. Get the hell out of here now. I had never seen him this angry before. Timothy, I grabbed his hand, only then noticing his eyes were red. Honey, they've gone too far. He rubbed my hair. Let's not bother with others from now on. Just us. I can't bear to see you in trouble. Okay, but they seemed unwilling to leave us alone. We won't stop bleeding at your doorstep until you hand over the zombie. An axe smashed against the door, making a loud sizzle. What do you really want? I shouted, my voice exhausted. There was silence outside for a while. Then they pushed the building manager out. He was timid and cowardly. The zombie goes down to fetch supplies, just as I thought. It's all for supplies, so. You just need the supplies. Yes, I'll go F asterisk asterisk asterisk. Timothy stopped my curse gently, saying, I'll go, first thing tomorrow morning, 25, at night. Lauren was too scared to sleep alone, so she ran into our room. I held her and soothed her to sleep. Victor's incessant mumbling came from next door. Let's keep Victor. Maybe there will be a cure in the future. Timothy was very quiet today. Scared? No. He turned to embrace me. Allison, I want to confess something to you. It had been a long time since he called me by my name. What? I've bitten someone before. Timothy's gaze shifted away from me, casting to a corner of the room. It was a girl. He panicked. But don't worry. I just bit her arm. Didn't touch anywhere else. Okay, I got it. It's all right. I hugged him back, patting his head. I actually knew about it long ago, because the person Timothy bit was me, and he was lying. He was both kissing and hugging me, biting me not just once but twice. I discovered Timothy's zombie identity earlier than he might have imagined. At that time, I had only been with the company for a year. I held a pure admiration for the big boss. I finally got a chance to travel with his team on a business trip, but I was assigned to do odd jobs and didn't even get to meet him. However, in the dead of night, I received a call from Timothy, his heavy breathing coming through the receiver. Come to my room. Could this be my lucky break? Although I just wanted to observe him from a distance, I couldn't resist such a direct invitation. I didn't expect that upon entering, I would see his blood-covered corpse. It was definitely a corpse. I checked. There was no breathing. A metal rod protruding from the bathroom had pierced below his collarbone, causing a fatal, volcano-shaped wound. He must have faced an emergency and randomly dialed my number. My pupils dilated in shock as I tried to crawl away. I hadn't crawled far when Timothy suddenly opened his eyes. He lunged at me. I blocked my neck with my arm, which he bit down on tightly. I closed my eyes. That's it. I thought I was done for. A mild pain spread through my arm. A hot, soft sensation enveloped me. I sneakily opened my eyes. Why was he biting me and then blowing into my ear? I timidly asked, "Is this an April Fool's joke?" But there was no response. Timothy had fainted. The next day when I saw him again, Timothy acted as if nothing had happened. There was not a trace of blood on his clothes or in his room. I always thought that everything that day was just a dream, until I saw a scar identical to mine. The bite from Timothy never fully healed. I tattooed a small rabbit over it. Now, the rabbit was being held in Timothy's embrace. He was asleep, outside. The moon hung brightly. Everything was peaceful and beautiful. Dare the world try to destroy this. Tomorrow, we both must live. I still have to create a family of 4 with Timothy, and 4 generations living together. The next morning, the young couple from before contacted me. It turns out, a few days ago someone irresponsibly left the building entrance open. Now everything below the 4th floor was overrun. There were masses of zombies below, but only a security door held them back. No wonder no one dared to go out for supplies, leaving us to bear the brunt. William had once studied the blueprints of the underground parking garage and showed us a safe route. Timothy didn't want me to go. I clung to him, refusing to let go. Honey, stop it. Wife, honey. I squeezed out a couple of tears. Humph. Could Timothy really resist this? As it turned out, he could. Timothy tied me up and left me in the room. Stay here. Wait for my return. He kissed my forehead. Don't worry. I can't bear to die. I had a feeling that Timothy needed me. So I freed myself from the blankets and quietly followed him. The stairwell was eerily quiet. I could only hear my own breathing. I dared not take the elevator, for the small space would leave no escape in case of a fight. Descending to the 5th floor, suddenly a scream came from below. Before I could flee, 2 indistinguishable figures ran up. It was a zombie gnawing on a man's shoulder. I kept backing away. "Are you okay?" The bitten man, with tears in his eyes, replied, "Do I look okay to you? Did you see a tall, handsome man go by? You mean the one dressed in a gray tracksuit, with a stern, ascetic look?" "Yes, he left with a man and a woman." The man, distracted by the zombie on his shoulder, swayed around. "You should head downstairs. The door's open and it's clean." Timothy had left with a man and a woman. It must have been William and Mila, the married couple. "Thanks." I gripped the baseball bat in my hand. "Do you need my help hitting her?" The man waved his hand with a smile. No need, she's my wife. The long-haired zombie looked up at me, flashing a bloody grin. May you have children soon. I moved past them and continued running downstairs. The man was right. The entire fourth floor was spotless. Everything felt deliberately cleaned up. I went down to the sublevel. The elevator was broken and stopped here, leaving a large pool of blood inside. But there was no sign of Timothy. A bad feeling suddenly came over me. Timothy. Ignoring the risk of attracting zombies, I started calling out his name. Then, out of nowhere, some bastard knocked me out from behind. When I opened my eyes again, I was dazzled by the bright white around me. I found myself lying on a hospital bed. You're awake. Mila's voice came from behind me. What have you done to me? Where have you hidden Timothy? I tried to move but felt terribly uncomfortable. Mila ignored my question, coldly reciting my personal information. Sophia, 28 years old. A broadcaster by profession, married, husband's name Timothy, infected with the virus about 2 years ago, no symptoms appeared, initially assessed as an antibody carrier. Mila, in a lab coat, was followed by several others. Her confident smile reminded me of the time she helped us cover up. I suddenly realized something. Mila leaned down, whispering in my ear. I noticed that day. Your husband is a special kind of zombie. We originally just wanted to capture him, but you came right to us. Very good. You are what we were actually looking for. Was it you who incited them to cause trouble, forcing us out? I thought you were the good guys. We are the good guys. Indeed, we've been looking for a cure, and now, we might have just found it. I'm the cure, just my luck, constant tests. Draining my blood. Can I see Timothy one last time? I'm afraid that's not possible. Mila's smile twisted. He's already been sent to the zombie isolation area. He must have turned into a monster by now. I wanted to save my husband and suddenly felt a surge of energy. I jumped up with the click-click sound, but they had guns. I lay down again. Damn. Mila pressed down on my head. I suggest you don't struggle needlessly. If you cooperate with us, your husband might suffer less. She turned on the TV on the wall. It showed surveillance footage of a large factory. The factory was crammed with disfigured zombies, at least a few thousand. Among the crowd of zombies, I caught sight of Timothy. He stood frozen among them, continuously nodding towards the camera. Actually, the virus began spreading secretly 2 years ago, and all the infected have been isolated here. Most of the samples were used for our research. These are what remain. So many. Can I really make that much medicine alone? Haha, you don't need to save everyone. Just saving a part of the population is enough. A part of the population. Which people? The rich, the powerful, also, the smart ones. Mila stepped aside, revealing the hospital bed behind her. On the bed lay William, deep in slumber. Mila swung her knife, slashing forcefully across his shoulder. Blood gushed out and stained the bed. In an instant, the wound healed. Has William been infected? Blood stained Mila's fingers. She touched William's face, a manic smile spreading across her face. He'll get better. To her, the lives of millions didn't compare to the life of her loved one. The same went for me, so I said, I can cooperate with you. Can you let my husband go? Mila relaxed a bit. He's a zombie. He'd be killed if he went outside. Timothy has a six-pack. He won't be taken down that easily. He's also very wealthy, and he's the male protagonist. What are you trying to say? I casually crossed my legs, looking composed. Nothing. Just a reminder, this is a zombie story by Lauren. Before Mila could react, the window exploded. A horde of zombies, or rather, indestructible strong men, stormed in. I quickly dove under the bed. Gunshots rang out. The team stood unflinching. The armed guards in the room ran out of ammunition and stood in shock. Mila was pinned down by several men, lying on the floor, not daring to move. After the smoke from the gunpowder cleared, a row of gray shadows stood erect. Then, I heard the voice I had longed for. Wife. The smoke cleared. Timothy stood behind the wall, legs crossed, leaning against the window frame. He said, I've been looking for you for a long time. Being captured by Mila was actually part of Timothy's plan. That day, Brother Axe had tipped him off, revealing that it was Mila and her group who had betrayed us. So he decided to go out and investigate. He initially just wanted to teach them a lesson to ensure our safety, but he accidentally uncovered their conspiracy hiding here. Timothy wanted to gather complete evidence before returning. My following him was an unexpected variable, but also anticipated. Thus, he teamed up with a few not fully mutated infected and launched a counterattack. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. Until Timothy gave me a nodding signal. He said he'd handle everything. Even so, I still had many questions. Weren't you just crazily nodding over there, looking not so smart? How did you get here so quickly? Cough. What kind of company do I run? I'm good at making fake videos. Oh, and how could Brother X possibly tip you off? To him, his own life is the most important. So I told him what? My wife is a cure. You can take a bite. Deserves a smack. But he knew I was the cure. I've known for a while. Timothy said mysteriously, "Why are you still?" "Just kidding, hee hee." "Honey, do you think I love you because we are the same species?" I really thought so. Without that video, we would never have crossed paths. Honey, that's not it. He suddenly hugged me tightly. "I'm truly mesmerized by your charm." No. Trapped by affection. That's more like it. "Honey, I've liked you since a long time ago." I was the first fan of your live streams. Seeing you progress little by little made me happier than anyone else. I love how you never give up. I love how timid yet brave you are when you sneak glances at me. I love your witty banter, your daydreams. I love you. I can't hold back anymore. I need to kiss this man. And just like that, I kissed him. Smooch. Timothy froze for a moment, staring at me. His warm fingers climbed up to my neck. His lips swiftly and fiercely hit the target, stealing my breath away. Softly, murmurs of gurgle gurgle echoed around. How lovely. I should be under the car, not here. I miss my wife. Shall we go? I had never thought before. The rolling sands of the abandoned factory and the kisses seemed so fitting. Breathless, I leaned on Timothy's shoulder to rest. "Timothy, why did you take such a risk to come here?" Let me think. I looked up at him earnestly, pondering. If they are only seen as monsters, and only a few survive, how far can the world be from destruction? If the world is coming to an end, how can we grow old together? So, for you, I want to save the whole world. Something melted inside my heart. I squeezed his hand tightly. Me too, for you. I want to save the whole world. After settling Lauren, Victor, and the clumsy one at home, I prepared to go to the relevant department to expose myself as an antibody carrier. Timothy, holding my hand, nagged, "Honey, do you really want to go? Aren't you afraid they'll drain your blood? Isn't it you who said about saving the world? Good wife, I support you." We finally reached our destination after much hardship. It turned out to be just across from our neighborhood. Only then did we discover that there were already a bunch of antibody carriers here. Researchers were working day and night to find a specific cure. Timothy and I moved into the live specimen building of the Key Laboratory as a typical example of recovery. Timothy was asked to write a self-report detailing the process of infection, symptoms, and recovery. Thinking back to the day of infection, I felt a bit embarrassed. "You must have been quite confused then. Should I help you write it?" He gestured grandly. "No need." Later, his self-report spread widely throughout the district. The content was, well, rather explicit. Timothy was overjoyed. "Honey, this is sacrificing for the world." 5 days later, a traditional Chinese medicine appeared that could alleviate madness. 2 weeks later, a vaccine was also developed. 6 months later, a specific drug finally arrived. More and more people, including me and Timothy, returned to their families. Damaged buildings were repaired. Those who took advantage of the chaos were judged. A year later, the world slowly returned to its normal functioning. I hugged Timothy, enjoying the breeze, both body and mind delighted. "Look, the world hasn't ended yet. All right, next up, growing old together." Timothy pulled me onto his lap, and a family of 4, with 4 generations under one roof. The end. Wedding side story. Hello everyone, I'm Lauren, the child from another family. I'm so happy my illness has been cured, and I can finally go to elementary school. Mom and Dad came home too, and they said they'll spend more time with me from now on. Upstairs, Big brother Timothy and big sister Sophia are planning to have a proper wedding ceremony. They asked me to be the flower girl, and big brother Victor to be the best man. Although Victor's illness is also cured, he has a large wound that still bleeds often, so he's always worried about not being able to find a girlfriend. Big sister Sophia told him not to worry. She's found several beautiful ladies to be bridesmaids. I hope that silly Victor finds the bitterness of love soon. On the day of the wedding, I arrived at brother and sister's house early in the morning. Strangely, big brother Timothy was standing at the door with a tense face. I thought he was just nervous, but inside, big sister also had a serious expression. Her beautiful wedding dress was tossed aside, stained with blood at the front. Their expressions reminded me of myself when I scored 30 on a test, and how my mom looked when she saw my report card. Big sister with hands on her hips. Do you realize what you did wrong? Big brother with a look of grievance. I know I did wrong. Honey, I told you not to hug me. Your wound could bleed onto the wedding dress, and it would be awful. But honey, you were too beautiful. I couldn't help myself. So what do we do now? Big brother Timothy was at a loss for words and continued to be punished by standing. I raised my hand. How about, dye it all red? I'm such a clever little devil. And then big sister got married in that red wedding dress. She was so beautiful, prettier than any bride I've ever seen, because big brother was alternately laughing so hard his mouth stretched to his ears and then crying his eyes out. I won't compliment him too much. Many uncles and aunts who had been sick before also came to the wedding. They said that big brother Timothy and big sister Sophia saved their lives. I know they saved mine too, so I also left them a little blessing. I heard from the adults that kids jumping on the newlyweds' bed is a magical way to create babies, so I invited the whole class of kids to come. I don't know if it will be too much for big sister, but big brother Timothy seemed really happy. I think I'll have little nieces or nephews very soon.